no idea that happened.
Because it didn't happen.
It did happen. Stop lying to yourself.
In these conversations.
Can you expand more on that? That you don't think anybody in this society can inherently be racist? The impact of having your identity removed and then invalidated
applies to a lot of different social issues, BLM, LGBTQ, Me Too movements.
Hello. Welcome back to our 4th episode of the Decemt Podcast. I'm Alex and I'm with
Jason/Moose.
And today we have a very, very good episode for you guys. But to start off, like always, we're going to do some worldwide news.
Okay, so worldwide news, obviously, if Alex edited this episode on time, it will still be in the duration of the Chinese New Year. But as you know, this year, it's the year of ox, or bulls, or cows, whatever. You name it. So if you are born in the year of ox, Happy New Year, and to all the Chinese and whoever celebrates Lunar New Year, Happy New Year to you too. Hope you receive many monies in your red pockets. I sure didn't. Now, next question. Next news is Tokyo 2020. So the Olympics obviously gathered a lot of attention. It's been delayed to this year, but I doubt that it's going to happen this year. Again, well, there's a news that Tokyo 2020 Olympics president resigned over sexist remarks he made. Since they lost like an executive position, who knows what will happen to this year's Olympics or next year's Olympics. Well, another news is Nigeria's central bank ordered to unfreeze bank accounts of end-SARS protesters. So if you are interested in the SARS news in Nigeria, please search it up to get more insights of that. Alex?
Thanks, Jay. I'm just going to talk about a bit of the U.S. impeachment trial. This is, as we all know, Donald Trump has already been impeached twice. However, he is the trial right now is whether or not he can run for president again. However, more accusations and more severe punishments are being dealt, to the extent that now there's a video that was brought to life in court where they're thinking of trialing him for attempted assassination of Mike Pence when he was trying to overrun the government. So right now, and I'm not making this up, Trump, after his defense wasn't good, he went golfing. So it's all shaping not in the way of the former president of the United States. But
yeah. So to adding on that, I would say go educate yourself on U.S. Impeachment trials and how Senate, Supreme Court, and the House of Representatives work in this matter.
And then last and final question before we end up in our episode is the civil rights movement in Russia, in the Republic of Russia. As we know, the election coming up, and somehow Vladimir Putin always seems to win, but this time the people are kind of not having it, so they took it to the streets, and the government has seen to be shown their violent side. So tensions are high there in Russia. We hope that it's settled soon and the election goes as smoothly as possible. But whether or not, let's get into and introduce our guests.
So as we mentioned, we have 2 guests this episode. So how about let them introduce themselves? So first question, who are you?
Thank you. Okay. Hello, I'm Angela. I am 18 and I am currently a freshman at NYU.
My name's Kibatsi, also a first-year student. I'm at the University of Toronto. and I went to Berkeley with Jason and Alex and Angela, and it's great to see you all again.
Yeah, so we haven't actually talked for a long time since the graduation because of COVID, obviously.
Even
But
graduation, right?
yeah, didn't even have a graduation. But let's record how do we all meet? Obviously, Wrigley is the place, right? But do you guys have any first impressions of each other? Actually, I will go first. I already talked about first impression of Alex when we did the first episode, but I have first impressions on Angela and Tom because of the geography class we had together with Mr. Ronald. And back then I wasn't able to speak English that much. So basically, no,
Yeah, you could.
like,
It wasn't bad. Trust.
but like I was so quiet, like sitting
That's
in the
facts,
third
though.
row of the classroom. But I mean, I just know Angela always sings in the class, and Mr. Ronald's like, and Tom is like beside. I don't know. Didn't have really. But how about you guys?
Like to make Mr. Ronald cry. I'll never forget that. When him and Brendan made Mr. Ronald cry, I bring that up all the time.
Wait. No, first of all, just tell that story pretty quickly. I had no idea that happened.
It's because it didn't happen.
It did happen. Stop lying to yourself.
Okay.
What happened was, I don't know, it was just one of those classes where like nobody was paying attention. Everybody was like talking and whatever.
Sorry, Mr. Ronald.
Tom and Brendan got on him, and Mr. Ronald was just like, and I was like,
okay, first things first. Okay, it was the entire class that was not paying attention. I don't know how the story came down to like it was just me, and he wasn't actually.
That's what I know.
He was faking it. He was like,
okay,
just to get our attention. He didn't actually shed tears.
Yeah,
we don't know. He could have been feeling pain in his heart.
I mean, I still took his class after that. You know, Angela left him and never even said hi to him after that. So
that's falsehood. He was my volleyball coach for 2 years.
Yeah, I do remember that back then. There was like an online game that's like a golf thing. Brandon's always playing that game in the class.
Oh yeah, Flappy Golf.
Oh, Flappy Golf. Exactly.
That is, oh my gosh.
It's a long time ago, but do you guys have? So Alex came to our grade like in grade 11, but do you guys have an first impression on him?
Yeah, I just remember. I just remember like English class. That's what I think of. I'm pretty sure that's the only place that I first knew you.
I kind of just like tucked myself in the corner because I don't know. It was just the class. Did you like Mr. Lee? Like not like him as him, but like as a teacher, like the way we read the books and stuff.
Bro, I don't even know. All I know is that I came to that class to be entertained. It was always laughing in that class. Ask me what I learned. I don't remember.
No, there were a few times where I had fun, but I can't say a lot about you, Angela, but I do remember a few instances of Tom. I don't know if you remember. This might have been my second or first year, but we didn't talk so much. But I remember one time, I think it was tryouts. And we were,
I was going to do the same thing.
Yeah, it was tryouts, and we were doing a drill. But I do remember, I don't know why, I had the ball, and you just came out of nowhere and tried to 2-foot tackle me a few times. And I got absolutely scared. So every time I saw Tom, I just ran the other way, no matter what. So that was just, I feel like, impression. So yeah.
I was going to say my first impression of you was soccer tryouts as well. But I know a lot of people say I do 2-foot tackles. I think I might have to stop doing that now.
Even in futsal, man, come on. The ground was hard too.
Hey, but there's a reason you made first team and I made second team. So I think that's very clear now.
That's fair. So basically, you all three were prefects. And I think we all four did the IB, right? Yeah, perfect. Mm-hmm. And some of us have responsibilities in the house. So the next question 3 is, you with all that time and all that busy schedule, how did you guys find time for music? Because that's going to be a main thing about this podcast. So how did you guys time for to develop music? I know Angela went to a competition, which is really pretty big, and I've heard you sing, and it's amazing. To like, it really is. So how do you have time to do all that?
Okay, I think for me, I was like, music for something wasn't something that, like, if I started a song and I didn't finish it, I didn't really care. So I also like really took my time with it. So let's say I had a bunch of assignments and I didn't like make a song in an entire week. It was chill. I also like write constantly. Like I never like stopped writing. So like I could be sitting in a class and a couple lyrics come to my head, like I write them down, and then during lunch I spend maybe 20-30 minutes like fleshing out those lyrics. So like even though I wasn't like I could take weeks or months without recording, I was still like writing every day, because like once something happens to me, I immediately just start thinking of like lyrics or bars, or I don't know, I think maybe a lot of writers experience that they're just constantly writing. I've heard some like authors talk about that before. So
do you just keep like your phone around, just like a notebook, just whenever inspiration comes around?
yeah, so just like the notes app on my phone, like if you
Oh, fair
scroll
enough.
through the notes app on my phone, there's probably like 100 different notes, and like if anybody else were reading them, they'd be like, what is, like, this makes no sense, because it's just random thoughts coming to my head.
And then after, how do you just make that into a summary and make a song?
So I would have to like flesh them out, or if I get like maybe in a couple of days I get like a couple really good ones that I think, okay, yeah, this is really good, this is something that could actually make a song, then I would like maybe over a weekend, or I pulled a lot of all-nighters making songs. So because it's also not boring, right? It doesn't feel like work when you love what you're doing. It's just easy for you to do that. So I did that a lot of times.
Fair enough. What about you, Angela?
I feel like it was a bit different for me. Like I was always, doing music in some way, because like especially choir and stuff, like we were singing 3 times a week or stuff, things like that. So like I was always like around music. My voice was always, ready. The way I like write music and create music is a lot different from Tom. Like I write based on a feeling. Like sometimes I'll just get a feeling, I want to write a song. I don't know about what. I'll go to the piano and it just flows out of me. So that's kind of how I would do my personal songwriting. It's just sometimes I just walk to a piano, go to Second Century Building, just things like that. But then like when it came to like posting stuff on like SoundCloud and like covers and stuff like that, I literally just, I would do it whenever I felt like it. I would just download karaoke tracks and record in my room. It's so funny how many times people are like, Angela, shut up. Because the walls are so thin. But yeah, like Tom said, it's so easy to lose track of time when you're recording or making music, because it doesn't feel like work. It's just fun.
But did you ever guys feel that, oh, I have so much responsibilities as prefect, as a IB student, that you couldn't really flesh out your music, or you couldn't like really give it as much time as you wanted?
I definitely feel like I didn't spend as much time. Like I think all through Ridley, if I obviously I don't want this to happen, but if I never had responsibilities or anything to actually keep up with, I could just do it for days without like feeling like, oh, I'm missing out on something. So I think there's also that. I think like maybe let me relate that to you playing soccer. Like if you didn't get tired, you could play an entire match and just feel like I never want to leave the pitch. Like I'm calm. Like I don't want to not do this. So I think it's that same thing, but for everyone, I think that's also a good thing, because doing something too much becomes a bit of a disadvantage to you. So writing, of course, as much as you can, you love to do that, but it's also good to take a step back and remember that you've got other stuff to do in the real world.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. Angela?
I think, like, for me, when I think about it, I think grade 11 was probably my most productive year creating music in high school. I feel like that was probably the year where, like, I didn't have too much extra things to deal with, even though it was the first year of IB and you're applying for, like, prefectship and all that stuff. It still didn't feel that heavy. Grade 12, I think I didn't really have much time to do anything musically, and I didn't really find it that challenging because the way that I write music anyway, it's not like I plan out times to write music. I just like it's very spontaneous whenever I write music.
And
So I didn't.
sorry, in uni, have you had time to make music?
Yeah, I've been writing a lot of songs, bro. Because I'm just like in my room, right? So
That's
I've been
perfect.
making a lot of stuff.
So you both. So sorry, Tom. You gonna say something?
I was gonna say, are we expecting a release or what's going on?
My guy, here's the thing. I have a lot of songs, but like I don't know how to like master them and produce them to make them sound good. And I don't know. I'm not a perfectionist. But, like there's a certain level I want to reach, and I'm not there yet with all my drafts, so I can't share them yet. You know.
I feel that.
You can help her with that.
Well, I mean, I'm currently paying someone to do that for me
Oh,
because
really? Okay.
I'm in Angela's shoes as well. I don't know how to do that by myself, but luckily he's an old friend, so I'm getting it kind of cheap. But apart from that, I definitely understand what she means. Like, you don't want to, especially because it's like your voice and everything. I think people are a lot more critical about what they sound like. Like that feeling when you hear your own voice in a recording, you're like, ew, that's what I sound like. So the same thing, like when you make your own song.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to making art because Alex and I are IB art students.
No,
It's like,
don't even put me with that mix. I was there just credit. Like I was next.
we
I was
make
next.
art. We all think our arts are shitty, you know. Like
I was next to Tanya, next to Kevin, who were the best people in our class.
Oh my goodness.
And you see me just drawing shapes, and I'm like, okay. It was so depressing. That class was no, but you guys both produce music. So what type of music do you guys produce? I know, Angela, I've heard a bit of you playing the piano, a little bit more emotional. I think Tommy did a diss track, if I heard the rumors correctly, back in the day. So yeah, what type of music do you guys produce?
I think okay, so like before I just used to write a lot of like emotional songs. There wasn't really a genre for it, maybe like poppy, but as of this summer I've been writing a lot of more R&B kind of stuff. And like Sharon kept on telling me, Angela, you should do R&B, like it would fit nicely with your voice. And I was like, nah. But then I was like, okay, maybe I should. So a lot of my songs sound like a bit more R&B like now, but like there's still that pop influence as well.
I would say rap, but the way rap is right now, I wouldn't say that's what I do. I don't know how to describe. So if you're talking like J. Cole,
like more lyricist and story based.
Yeah, J. Cole, YBN Cordae, JID, more on that side and less of like Travis Scott, Lil Nas, and Lil Pump. And if they have a little, it's probably not gonna sound like me. So yeah, more on the lyricism kind of side. That's more of what I stick to, and also like more of upbeat, like stuff that you could play in front of your kids and still turn up to.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of more of what I focus on. Now that I describe it, it sounds a bit less like rap, but yeah.
Yeah,
Bro,
interesting.
who's kids? Who has kids that they're playing your music in front of?
I mean, well, just
in
general,
the future,
right?
in the future.
Yeah, I want to grow up, and then my kids are gonna be asking me like, "So what'd you do for fun in high school?" And I'd be like, "Here's my album."
I just presented the thing. Well, I was like after graduation, I was wondering because you two are like the stars of choir, although Tom is not in the choir at school, but he's like always participating forced by Mr. Hutton. And you guys are like the stars, but I'm like, they're gone now. Like, who's up to take your position, right? But
Gina,
talking
you forgot
about
about Gina. You forgot about Jacob,
like,
bro. His voice.
Rob, like,
Yeah.
for example, if you are guys doing like, I forgot the song's name.
Glory, right?
Glory.
Imagine Jacob rapping
I
Glory.
mean, I'm excited to see Mr. Hutton do a couple rap verses. I think he could. I really
Yeah.
Well, talking about music, so how did you guys discover music as a passion or hobby?
I think, I don't know, I just always, it's so cliche, but I literally always love music. church definitely had a lot to deal with it, especially because like I spent my childhood in Nigeria. So like church, Tom knows, church in Nigeria is an experience. Like you go there ready to celebrate. You go there ready to dance. There's piano, there's drums, there's everything. Everybody's just vibing, if that's the way I'll put it. So like that was probably my first introductions to music. It was just something that was uplifting and enjoyable. And then later on in my life, in my very short life, I just started writing my own stuff. Like I think I started writing my own stuff when I was like 10, and I was like, oh my god, can I actually like write music over here? And and that's what I started doing. I realized like, wow, you can actually like create your own melodies and stuff like that. So first it started off with church, but then it just went off personally from there. Like I just started creating my own things and sharing with people. And something else that I realized I really loved was the performing aspect of music. So I started getting really involved with that.
Yeah, you also involved in, both of you are involved in musical theater back at Ridley. Oh, how about Tom?
So so I went to a boarding school when I was like, when I was still pretty, when I hit like double digits, that's when I went to boarding school. Back then, like music wasn't a big thing in my life, but I was like interested in performing, and because I did like debates and speeches, and like I love just being on stage. And then in my boarding school, I realized that a lot of people like rap music, but I personally wasn't really interested in it. I think it's also that part of like, you know, in boarding school for the first time, you really want to fit in and do what everyone else was doing. But like they would play different songs and I just wouldn't, like I couldn't relate at all. And so I think it was when I got to Ridley. So at that time, I wasn't listening to rap. I don't even know what I was listening to, if I was even listening to music at all. But when I got to Ridley, Chance the Rapper had just dropped 2016 coloring book. And somebody out there is listening, dissing me right now. You, Chance the Rapper, like, don't get on me. I don't know what he's doing right now. He's gonna fix up. I'm sorry. Anyways, so I listened to 2016 Coloring Book and I loved the album. I was like, wow, rap can be this. And I was like, that's crazy. And then I listened to Kyle, and that was also really good. And then, so what I did was I took stems of their tracks, just the, what's it called, instrumental, and then I would like just try to sing the songs by myself because I really loved performing. So I would, but not to anyone, just for myself. And then after a time, just listening to instrumental, singing the lyrics by myself, I started to make my own lyrics. And then I started writing my own lyrics down, and eventually I'd make a song to like somebody else's beat. And then from there, I was like, okay, let me get new beats, new lyrics, and start making my own songs. And then, yeah, it just kept growing on and on from there. But if it hadn't been for Chance and Kyle, who like showed me like rap can be so many different things, which it is today, I probably wouldn't have ever started.
Interesting. So, Angela, you mentioned that church in Nigeria kind of sparked the music in you. How about other cultural aspect or people who inspire or influences your music? I know Beyonce is kind of huge.
I literally got to say that. But of course, let me talk about personal people firstly. I think like my parents, like we were always playing music in our house. We still are. And I know they were always dancing, they're always singing, regardless of how they sounded, which was not very good. they were always singing. So like I just grew up to enjoy the sound of music, enjoy music making, and all the things that come with being in a musical environment. And then obviously there are just some artists that you grow up listening to that are just incredible. So like for me, when I started, like my mom did not want me to listening to like secular music, so I was listening to like Yolanda Adams and like Christian singers, and then I started listening to Whitney Houston and then Beyonce. So all these very soulful, powerful voices, and I think that probably influenced my tone as well. But yeah, like just some incredible artists that like showed me how powerful music can be in terms of its emotional reach, in terms of how when performing, it can literally transform an environment. I was just like, whoa, get me on that stage.
Yeah, Tom, any added?
Yeah, I think mine is sort of a similar story. Just piggybacking off of what I just said about Chance the Rapper and Kyle. I think they too have had a big influence, and not just them, but artists I've listened to since then have had a big influence on what I think about music and the power of music. That it can not necessarily soulful, but it can definitely be uplifting. So using that skill of like lyricism and wordplay and also being able to put your own personal story in there in a way that other people can relate to. I think a person who does that great is who does a great job of that is YBN Corday, because he's young, but he also is very mature for his age, and I think that that's something that a lot of older people really appreciate. So yeah, different artists like that have really influenced my own music, and I think that's why probably I write in that type of style as well.
Mm.
Pretty much kind of changing the subject drastically. What we all went to a international school, a bunch of different cultures. So this month's a very special month. So I'm going to ask the question: what is and why is Black History Month so important to recognize?
Okay, so that's a heavy question, but firstly, what is Black History Month? It's a month celebrating Black culture, especially North American Black culture, because of how rich its history is. I think when I think of why it's so important to recognize, I think of all the things that have happened before we've gotten to this point, all the things that are still happening. So the impacts of having your identity removed and invalidated. So from slavery to segregation, just so many situations in which Black people are constantly told not to be. So I think Black History Month is really one of those moments where you're like, at the end of the day, I don't care the kind of oppressive systems you're trying to hold me down into. I'm Black and I'm proud, and I'm gonna, be prideful of that. So yeah, I think that's why Black History Month is so important, because it reminds us that we've come so far, but it also reminds us that there's a long way to go.
Mm-hmm.
My answer to that question is a bit more personal than what it would be for everyone. So coming from Nigeria at such a young age, I actually never heard of Black History Month. In Nigeria, we don't celebrate it. And I think that, for example, I think in March around this time, what we are celebrating is called Children's Day, which I don't think they have here in Canada. So I felt that switch when I came to Ridley. And my perspective on that is we celebrate Black History Month here in Canada because there's a history there. There's a history that needs to be acknowledged. There's a history that needs to be retaught. There's a history that needs to be remembered for every single person from every single culture. And the reason why I was very eager to jump at Ridley at opportunities to talk about Black History Month and have different events during Black History Month is because first things first, like I said, I didn't know about it before, and it was a great chance to learn about American Blacks and their history. And second thing second, I also wanted to see how I could fit into that role. As a Nigerian who was born in America but has never even really learned about the struggles that Black Americans faced, I'm like, what can I do now? In an international school, that's a big opportunity that a lot of Black Americans, Black Canadians have never had. So I was really interested in trying to see what can I do here? What is my role? What is my, what can I do in this situation? And I think being a prefect allowed me to answer a couple of those questions.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I think my experience quite familiar, like similar with Tom, because I never heard of Black History Month before coming to Canada. Like Ridley is like,
I was gonna say the exact same thing.
yeah. But although I know like the history behind it beforehand, but like actually have a month dedicated to the recognition and celebrating the culture of it is new to me as well when I
Yeah.
first came.
I think the furthest I went to in primary school was learning about MLK and civil rights
Mm.
in America. I think that was where we kind of stopped. We never got to the whole thing.
Mhm.
No, I was just gonna say that, yeah, like Jason coming from Mexico. I really had no idea about anything. Just a really nice thing
Yeah,
to see.
I only knew about there's an Asian heritage. I think there's a Hispanic heritage month or day, whatever. When I
It was
landed in Canada, I was
it
like,
was never
"Oh,
it
you
was
guys
never
have
mentioned.
that?"
Really.
Yeah. So following that question, here's a deeper question. Have you ever experienced racism in Canada? Because we all know Canada, Canada is a country of diversity. Everybody is so accepting and stuff. But uh, based on my experience, it's not entirely true. But how about yours?
Oh, I just think it's so funny whenever I ask this question, not because like it's not a serious question, it's just because of like how somebody like was explicitly racist to me. It's just so funny to me. So it was in grade 10, I was like talking to somebody, right? And her like we were on her phone and we were on Snapchat responding to somebody. And he was like, "Don't let N-words open my messages to you." I said, "Whoa, whoa." So that was the first time like I was like,
At
in Canada
at
in
Ridley or
2018
oh,
in
wait.
Ridley College.
Oh, it was at school. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So somebody just called me an N-word, and I was just like, I was like taken aback for a second because I was like, wait a second, I thought y'all weren't racist up here. Like I thought
Crazy.
Canada wasn't a racist place, but like it really like kind of opened my eyes to how like yeah, that was a blatant example, but then it had it had me rethinking other like experiences that I've had. And I guess that's the difference between racism in America and Canada, I would assume, is that racism here is a bit more
Subtle.
Subtle.
passive.
Yeah.
It's a bit more subtle, and you don't realize you're being like somebody's being racist until you think back about it and you're like, huh, was that a bit, you know?
True.
And then I think another thing to acknowledge is like it's also not that bad because I feel like in America, the worst treated race are Black people in the United States of America. But in Canada, the worst treated race or ethnicity are Native Americans. So we don't experience to the extent that they do.
True. How about Tom?
So I was watching a video of Trevor Noah recently, and it was about him. He was talking about how, like in South Africa, they talk about racial issues, racism, and it's not hostile. So he gave an example of, like, for example, if he was talking to someone talking about racism, the other person, white, this just a general example, the other person, white, would get like super defensive, and Trevor Noah would have to respond and be like, it's okay, I'm not saying you did it. And then the other person would still be very, very defensive, and he's like, yeah, but it was your great grandfather's or whatever. I'm not like angry at you, let's just talk about this, because this is something that happened a long time ago, but it's still affecting us today. So you and I can have that conversation without you having to feel like it's your fault. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the point he was trying to get across. And the fact that, in South Africa, in fact, one of the first memory he remembers of like seeing comedy in live action was the relationship between, I think he was either with his grandfather or his father, I don't remember, and a white cop. And he saw influence in comedy and humor because his grandfather or father was able to make the cop laugh. And that was the first time he'd ever seen a white person and a Black person laughing together. And he just thought that was like amazing. That's why he wanted to pursue comedy. I just brought up that story because in Canada, I've definitely experienced the whole white people get defensive. I've experienced that before. Not a lot of times, but also in certain conversations, I think people would rather just avoid that conversation in total. And what I think is people avoid that conversation because they think it's going to be awkward. They think I'm going to be like the bad guy in this situation. I think that's how a lot of people view it. And just to anyone, Black, white, Asian, Latin American, wherever you're from, when you're having these conversations, don't think that any single person is the bad guy or the good guy. You know, like in the recent BLM protests, we saw white people on the street, we saw Black people on the street, we saw LGBTQ people on the street. Like nobody is the bad guy anymore. The real bad guys died a long time ago. And if there are any still bad guys here, it's not because of, you know, it's because that's how they were brought up. That's how their society still thinks. I don't think anybody in today's modern cultural society could still inherently be racist. So that's the point I try to always remind myself of in these conversations.
Can you expand more on that? That you don't think anybody in this society can inherently be
in
racist?
our current modern culture, like if you are aware of BLM protests, if you are aware, and not just racism, I think this applies to a lot of different social issues, BLM, LGBTQ, Me Too movements. The fact that these conversations keep coming up so frequently, I think, for example, I would love to assume that every student at Ridley College is not racist because we've had these conversations, because we've talked about these things, because you're with these people every single day, right? Obviously, it's possible that that there are still racist people, but what I try to tell myself, it might just be a coping system, is that if there are still those people, it's because they're not listening to our conversations. They have chosen to ignore these conversations, or they are having other conversations elsewhere, perhaps at home or in some other types of society where they're still being fed these nuanced ideas that racism is okay and sexism is, you know, okay, and all of those different types of things. So that's my little spiel. I try to see things probably just from a more optimistic light, but yeah.
Okay, so what I was going to say was, I think that's how I think of it as well. Like, the only way you can be racist in the 21st century is if you're actually choosing to be racist. Like, it's so hard to just avoid it and just to be unaware. Like, it's so hard in the 21st century, especially because of how much knowledge is made readily available through social media. So in situations like that, like, what is my reaction to somebody being racist to me? I don't necessarily feel upset, is that I feel sorry for them in some ways. Like that's why I thought that situation that I brought up was funny, because I was just like, you're not hurting me by saying this. Like it's a window into your mental, your thinking, your mental psyche, and it makes me kind of feel bad. Like, what environment were you brought up in that fostered this perception that you can say things like that, and that, like, basically what you're thinking is that there are people who are inherently inferior to you just because of the way they look. Like, what has allowed that to happen? So I guess, like, in situations like that, I feel more sorry than I do feel upset.
No, I really do agree, because I do want to tell a quick story. I was in the States. I went with a couple of friends. It was just me and some Latin friends, and we were speaking in Spanish. I don't think that loud, but I remember seeing this white woman with her child, and we were speaking in Spanish, just having a good conversation. And then I noticed that the mom is kind of like pushing the kid like kind of towards her, and I overheard in English, like, when there's Spanish people talking, get close to me. And I didn't know how to take that. None of my friends kind of noticed it, but when I, like you said, at the moment I was like, I brushed it away. But then after, when you have different experiences, you say like, oh wait, actually. And no, I was gonna say, Andrew, I completely agree with you in fact that saying, like, it's just a bit sad, because they don't know you, they don't know, they as you said, there's so much available knowledge in social media and so many different ways for you to understand So it's just quite sad that just some people think it's threatening or it's dangerous. So I don't know if you guys have any things to mention about that, but yeah, it's just a bit sad.
Yeah, so obviously last June, George Floyd's death kind of sparked the whole Black Lives Matter movement again, and it reaches like all-time high. And there were conversations going on, right? We had meetings online when we're at high school, and there was a conversation about how having Black friends doesn't necessarily mean that you are not racist or you don't have bias towards them. What's your interpretation on that conversation?
My dad always says that like there's 7 billion people in the world, but like a majority of what those 7 billion people think is controlled by perhaps like a 1%. And I think that term, the 1%, comes up in like almost every kind of conversation. But to answer your question, I think that even relating to Alex's story, just that anybody who is trying to fit into society by changing their mindset to say, okay, society says let's not be racist, so I'm just gonna go along with the flow and get my Black friends and be chill. You're lying to yourself. Like the fact that you think you can surround yourself with a couple people, and because like there's always that joke that says, oh, I'm not racist, my mother's brother's sister's boyfriend is Black. Like, you know, I don't care about that whole genealogy, I care about your relationship with me. So being able to kind of make sure that you're not being controlled by what society is telling you to say, but being controlled by what you personally think is the right thing. I think that's what's most important. And if your way of doing that is to first meet some of these Black people or gay people or whatever kind of people, if you need to first meet them to even understand what they're like and have your own personal relationship with them, perfect. That is great. But what is totally out of the question is saying, because I'm able to sit next to them and not want to punch them in the face, you know, that means we're okay. That means I'm not racist. No. You know, I think that that's just something some people say to try to like help themselves feel like they're doing their part. However, I think it should be a lot more than that. I think for a lot of people, it is more than that. And I also want to say, I think people today, at least the ones that I've met, I don't know, of course, if they're pretending or not, but I think people are trying to do better and to learn more and to be more vocal about these things. Coming from Nigeria, I didn't hear things like this ever. So it's great to at least know that where the problem persists, there are also solutions being discussed. So that's great to know.
Like, to answer that question, I think you have to start off by acknowledging that it's impossible. It's literally impossible for anybody to not have biases. It's literally impossible. So you have to acknowledge that regardless of what you think you are, regardless of what you think of yourself, it is a reality that you'll have biases and you have to work hard to overcome them, you know? So I feel like a lot of people have a version of themselves that they think that they live up to, or a version of themselves they think they are. And it's important to separate yourself from your intention and look at your effect.
So let's jump into more light and happier questions.
The emotional jumps in this podcast. Music.
But these are the easier takes that actually I've never heard. So thank you. Good. I'm still learning. I think everybody's learning. Everybody who listens is learning. So
thank you guys for even choosing to ask those questions. You know, a lot of people would, like I said, just rather avoid that conversation. So thank you guys for
no problem.
So Jason said that we're going to kind of just jump
again.
So Jay.
So what are you most proud of as Black people in terms of culture and history?
This is a very short, quick answer. And I can't talk too much about it because I don't know too much about it. But and I hope that's okay because this is not for all Black people. This is more for Nigerians. And in its own way extends to all Black people. But I hear that Nigerians are everywhere in the world, pretty much now, like every continent I can say probably. And whatever continent they're in, they always stand out. And I'm very proud of that because, you know, for example, in the US, in fact, I think that does extend to all Black people because, you know, the US just elected its first ever female president, who's also female vice president, who's also Black. And, you know, I think those types of trends show that society is one changing. And it also shows that, you know, there are limitations that have been placed on certain cultures and certain people in society. But those limitations are not doing a good job of limiting because we're still seeing all of these dramatic social movements that are making headway for people to learn, people to grow, people to overcome those challenges. Like Angela said, like we're always going to have biases, but we need to overcome them. And I keep seeing consistently that wherever Nigerians are, wherever Black people are, they're able to overcome whatever limitations like society has tried to place on them. So I think I've loved to see that, you know.
That's a very nice answer. Angela?
Yeah, for me, I'd say like on a more universal level. Similarly, I'm just proud of the way Black people, especially North American Black people, one, persevere, but have built their own history but also have built their own history because, you know, like all the way, like if we're coming back to the 1600s, when Black people first arrived in North America, their history was stripped from them. Before they even got to America, they were taken to like areas in West Africa, mixed along with different Black people from all over Africa so they couldn't communicate with the people they were on slave ships with. So it's that deep of a constant effort to rid people of their culture and their history. And Black people in North America have not only created their own history, but they found ways to be proud of it, to share it, and then to also persevere and overcome the oppressive systems that have been placed against them. Now, that is like the extremely positive perspective on that. There's still like some Black people who feel extremely limited by their situations justly, but are like almost like paralyzed by that, and that's, you know, it's very unfortunate. But in the most part, the fact that Black people continue to persevere with a joyous spirit. When you're around Black people, like especially like with me, whenever I'm around Black people, I'm just happy. They just exude a joyous energy. So the ability to just positively persevere is what I'm most proud of.
I love the way you said that. The next time someone says Black people are loud, I'm going to say, no, that's just our joyous spirit.
Yeah. So I think all of us know the song This Is America by rapper Donald Glover, also known as Childish Gambino.
Childish Gambino.
You know, yeah. And that song really, it kind of inspired me around a topic that that's like the whole racism thing, right? Like whole culture, even to every culture. It's like, okay, we appreciate the goods your culture brings us, but we like ignore, you know, your rights or your presence as a culture. So like that kind of that song in particular kind of I don't know, kind of sparked my reflections on the topic. So to end this, Alex.
Yeah, to end it, I'm going to ask the final question. So, as you know, Jason's actual name is Muji, and Alex is for Alejandro, which have a Mexican Latin name, more of a Chinese Asian name. Everybody knows you as Angela and as Tom. But the last question is, and it's a question we ask everybody. What does your name mean in terms of maybe it has something to do with your culture, with your family background? So the final question is, what's your name mean? Oh,
Yes. So Angela is God's messenger or angel. And I was just named that because when I was born, apparently my mom said, "Oh, my little angel," and then they called me Angela. And then Toluape, that's my middle name. Don't come for me, I didn't pronounce it right. My middle name means "to God be all the glory." So,
wow. Okay.
I never know your middle name, Angela, because like even writing an email, it's always Angela Dowden.
Angela Dowden.
yeah,
What time?
I don't know why my middle name is there right now. I don't know why you want to use it.
Yeah, we kind of all know Tom's Kibati because that's like,
I came to Ridley and said that my name was Tom, and then my actual name became my nickname. So I feel like that's kind of cool.
yeah.
So yeah, my first name is Kibati, and the full name is Abaralorn Kibati, and it means God's power never fails. So I don't know the story behind that, but I do love the meaning, because like no matter what situation I'm in, I just like sometimes just remembering that the name that I have literally means that I cannot fail is it's really encouraging to have something like that. So, God bless my parents for thinking of that one. And then Tamiwa means, okay, I'm not gonna cap right here. I forgot what it meant. But yeah, Tamiwa was also a name that I think really touches me personally. Not because of the meaning, but because there's a song that has, that lyric in it. And every time I hear that song, I remember my mom, because my mom sings that song when she wants to call my name. So that's also kind of cool, just a cute moment. So yeah, I think those meanings or inferences in my name are definitely great to always keep in mind.
Great.
Thank you guys. Those are very pretty cool answers. Yeah. So thank you guys for doing this. First of all, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're interested to see more about Angela and Tom, we'll put everything, their Instagrams down in the description. If you stay tuned for this entire time, give a like, and subscribe, and follow us for more. Jason?
Yeah, and also if you want to submit for the article diversity February edition, it's always available in the email. Just send me your writings and any stories you want to share with other people. And also I will also do an extra episode on implicit bias and racism next week, so keep for that.
More editing.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us, and thank you for the audience for listening us talking about happy, sad, and deep and depressed.
And thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time.
So yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.